ever worried that you might be the cool kid? You wear the latest fashions on top of all the trends. Or have you ever worried you were too much in the mainstream? Always so generic, more normal than your friends. Well, we've devised a test to put to rest your fears. There's no need to panic if you lend us your ears. Tonight you can't sleep easy after all that you've heard. Cause if you like the show, then you're probably a nerd. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all. Canon with Tyler, Phil, and Boris. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all in Canon.
It's Monday, and you know what that means. It's time for a new episode of the It's Canon podcast, the podcast where we like to talk about anything and everything, the podcast where we like to talk about movies, books, comic books, video games, lawsuits, licensing issues, etc., etc., etc. And the best part of it all is that it's all in canon. We're hosts, I'm Boris, and as always, I am joined by Tyler.
Contract law!
Woo! Everyone's favorite
Contract
topic.
law!
Yes. How's it going, buddy?
It is pretty good. My partner is out of country on a business trip. I'm
Business.
solo parenting, and I just got back from, we have some phenomenal friends, literally just down the street / the hill. I took the dog over there, and they were like, Tyler, here's some beer. And I was like, okay. And then the dogs played for an hour and a half, and then I walked back up the hill, and now I'm here.
Awesome. That sounds like an awesome way to spend a Monday night. How's the weather out there?
It's cold.
Yeah.
It's fucking cold. That's why we had dogs in the house playing.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, no.
Are you guys still going through like that one day spring, one day winter type of weather?
So this weekend was cold. It is minus 20 here at my house right now. It is supposed to be plus 2 tomorrow.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's so weird. So right now here in Toronto or in the GTA, we are in the middle of a snowstorm. It is disgusting outside. It's minus 2, so it's like that prime snow weather, right? And it's crazy right now. You just look outside, and it just looks like a sheet of white and going in all these different directions. Like, it's crazy out there. Hopefully everyone is safe. Hopefully everyone keeps their electricity here in the GTA. But I believe tomorrow is likely going to be a snow day here. So perfect timing to listen to the It's Canon podcast. It is just the us two. Wow. Dumb English lessons. It's just us two this week. Phil, hopefully you're feeling okay. He's got some appointments and stuff to deal with, so he's not here with us. But I know he is listening, because unlike you and I, he actually listens back to the show.
Weird. This is weird. I mean, look, I fully support his continued surgeries to become Cyclops from the X-Men.
Right?
That's his end goal.
Exactly.
He's getting laser eyes. I'm sorry that you all found out like this, but Phil's going to be the first person on Earth with laser eyes.
Exactly. Man, I like that office that you're in. Very nice color. I like the color.
It's a cute little office / our guest room. It's got a piano over there.
Oh, man. Look at you.
Yeah, I'm up in my partner's office. Usually I'm downstairs in the basement, which is,
a basement.
It's a basement.
A half-finished basement.
It is now 3/4 of the way finished.
Oh, look at that.
Always.
Moving all up in the world.
It has fire, and
here?
fire's nice.
Yeah, it very much is. What are we gonna talk about today? All right, so we're gonna do our usual, what we're reading, what we're watching, what we're playing, chat, and then later on, oh man, I've been looking forward to this particular discussion for a long time. We are gonna be really focusing, and I guess we're going to start the conversation with Wizard of the Coast and all that controversy. We're going to be talking about IP. We're going to be talking about licensing, and we're just going to have some fun. And Tyler, I can just see you're chomping at the bit for this one.
I've written a few articles that have already been published on this, and I'm gonna tell this is the last time I tell the joke that I've told a few times now, but there are few topics on Earth that are designed for the weird intersection of knowing about dragons and law, and I am one of the people on Earth who's designed to talk about dragons and law.
There you go. There you go. So you're basically like a Targaryen.
There's a lot of incest in the books. There's a lot of incest in the
I don't know.
books.
That's the first thing that came to mind. I don't know. I don't know what floats your boat.
No, thank you.
I have to watch, right? Or I have to watch. What is wrong? I know what's wrong with me. I'm starting to feel a little sick, so I've decided to take some Tylenol, higher dose than I normally take, because it's hard to find some Tylenol. Because apparently that's how the world is now.
The world ended.
Oh yeah. Here's the thing. I have, like, right beside my computer, I have 2 Tylenol colds, the cold and flu stuff. That stuff knocks me out. I'm not one to take medication, so when I do, it really does affect me. I cannot wait to take these motherfucking pills when we're done, because I'm gonna pass out like within 10 minutes after I take them.
Dream.
Right? Are you are you caught up? Did you finally watch Last of Us?
I told you I got caught up. It's good. It's a really good show.
Sure.
I like the we've had this issue in the past of sometimes there's a show and it's just like, yeah, it's good. I have nothing to say about it because it's just like, yeah, it's good. Meh.
Did you watch last night's episode?
No, I haven't watched last night yet.
Okay.
I have to hand in a manuscript this week, so
Been busy.
I wrote 5,000 words today instead, and the one show I watched today.
Ooh.
Great.
Ooh, crazy. No, it was a very good episode. It was a very, very great. No, it was great. It was really well done. It was essentially the DLC.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're they don't. Is it? Oh my god, brain fart. Are they only doing an 8?
9, only 9. We're 2 episodes away from. Well,
Oh, not, yeah. I knew we were close. I knew it wasn't like a. We're not doing a 23 episode season.
We're
in and out.
far from those days, man, and I love it. Like, you know what? I would rather have this quality and high budget and shorter seasons that are just every episode can be its own movie, feels like its own movie sometimes, than the long form. Not to say that there's no place for those. There is a place for those, right? But when you're telling a story like The Last of Us, when you're telling a story like Game of Thrones, when you're telling a story like Succession or something like that, right?
Mandalorian.
Mandalorian starts this week. Oh my god.
Starts in 2 days.
Yeah. Pedro Pascal's everyone's puppy, everyone's daddy. It's crazy. He's just taking over.
Yeah. It was like, surprise! It was me all along.
Exactly. No, so we're going to be talking about that.
Take off a mask. Captain Harkness. Catherine Hahn.
Oh, I cannot wait. Okay, look. We've had many discussions about the Disney Plus MCU shows, right? Alex, I know you're listening. You and I, we always bitch about them. Tyler, we always bitch about them. But I'm actually really looking forward to that one.
Most of them. I've actually been impressed by most of them.
I have too. Look, they've been good. They've been watchable. It just it falls into the trap that you and I have been talking about, where it's you gotta watch everything, or else certain things don't make sense. Like, perfect example of this was talking to a friend after we had talked about Ant-Man. Right? They listened to our episode. They gave us kudos, and essentially they're like, I don't know what I was watching half the time.
Yeah. I mean, even Feige's like, oh, we got to cut back. This is becoming a problem.
Yep.
Because I get it. A lot of people can't watch the shows.
But oh my god, what did I just do? I'm back. All right.
Okay.
Got to stop pulling on chains. The issue was, it was all about content, Disney Plus numbers. So, now that Mr. Iger's back, it seems like it's they're taking a step back, right? And they're being smart about what they release, where they release it, and when they release it, which that's really good for the MCU, because I know that there's just a lot of people who are tired of the MCU, right? You're getting that MCU. What's the term? Like the Fatigue. That's it. Thank you, Tyler. Yeah, MCU fatigue is really strong.
Yeah, there's a whole separate discussion to be had about the palace politics behind Iger's out. No, he's in. No, he's out. And I don't know how much. I don't know how much I give that to him. I think it's a convenient narrative to have. But I think that you're right, though. A lot of them are like everyone kind of involved is like, we got to start dialing it back. And to read my tea leaves a little bit, it does look like they're starting to divide it into roughly 3 big sections.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like they're going back to something along the lines of, and not entirely, but along the lines of the TV shows are going to be more Defenders-esque.
Yes.
Right? Because we're getting Echo, we're getting Daredevil.
Secret Wars.
There's rumors of another Hawkeye.
Yep. Secret Wars. That one's going to be a big old mashup, I think.
That's going to be a weird one. I'm curious. I mean, Armor Wars is now going to be a movie, which I think is probably... Armor Wars go either way. It's I don't know. I feel like they don't know what they want to do with Riri Johnson in the MCU, which is fair, because I think Riri Johnson is, broadly speaking, a less developed character than your Kamala Khan.
Yes. Agreed.
Like, right? She was designed to be the new Iron Man, which, sure, let's set aside whether or not that's a thing you can or should do.
Yeah.
I don't think you make a teenager a philandering sex maniac alcoholic.
Yeah, that would be weird. That would be weird,
right?
On so many levels. So many levels.
Right? I mean, and I think that's there's a separate. We got a whole rabbit hole of MCU. I think has a super genius. Not MCU. Marvel Comics have a super genius problem.
They do.
Because it's like everyone's a super genius. What does that mean?
Right. No, it's true. And the comics is getting worse and worse. Have you been keeping up with any comics from Marvel?
No.
Yeah, same here. It's getting harder and harder. I still keep up with some DC. I'm actually back to reading Batman. Chip Zdarsky has had an incredible run with Batman. After the Tom King run, which really took Batman back, the whole Batman Catwoman stuff was a little too much. Bane got way too much spotlight, so that Tom King run was a little But Chip Zdarsky is really doing a good job with Batman, in my opinion.
As soon as I left the job of running the comic store, I stopped reading Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
And it was part of it was just like, I just need a break. We moved. I didn't have a comic book store here. I don't want to ship stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And how all I read is like Image.
Yep. Same. For the most part. Image is having a great run right now. Really good stuff with Image. Yeah. You know what? We should have a episode dedicated to comics, aka Image, and create our own stuff.
There's some good stuff coming out of Boom. There's some really good stuff coming out of Dark Horse, to their credit. I think Mignola needs to wrap up Hellboy / that universe.
Yes.
At some point, because like he's been edging us for 15 years now.
Yeah, he has been. Back when we started this show in 2015, I swear to God, we were talking about the end of Hellboy and that BP, yeah.
He just keeps writing other stuff instead, and he's like, well, now we're back in the 40s, and I'm like, cool, that's fine. Yeah. I will keep buying Hellboy in the 30s and 40s. Just finish the story.
Yeah.
But
have you Saga? That's one that I'm so happy is back.
So great.
Right? Saga.
That's
just
fantastic.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. Have you watched Picard yet?
I'm still in season 2.
Yeah.
I have finite time.
Yeah, that's a problem. There's not enough hours in a day with, trying to, make money, live, and do all the other stuff.
Make beer. So much stuff I gotta do.
Oh, man, that's something we gotta talk about. We gotta get brewers back and have a whole episode about beer, aka just a huge excuse for us to get smashed on a podcast again.
I'm just letting you know, we found out about a malt house nearby.
Ooh.
That is dog friendly. So you go inside and there's just dogs running around off leash.
Amazing.
Cheap beers, and you can order in food. There's just order a pizza from somewhere else. It'll be great.
There's a place like that in Cambridge here in Ontario. I forget what it's called. But yeah, I love those. I just love places like that. That's how more places should be. I'm just scrolling through our usual feed, right? I have a feed where I get all the big news. Starfield. Remember Starfield? Apparently, we're going to finally see something about an announcement coming soon. Quote unquote, any day now.
Sure.
Right?
I mean, I hope it's good. I don't think I'm not holding my breath. I have actually been really disappointed with several big games to come out this year and last year.
Let's talk about that.
So Callisto Protocol is just uninspired. It's fine.
So
but the gameplay. Sorry, yeah, go for it.
No, finish.
The gameplay loop for a bunch of these games is just. It's just fine.
Mm-hmm.
For raising the price on us, which I can actually get behind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love it. I'm not cheering, but I'm also I'm sympathetic. But Horizon Forbidden West was really good. I like the Horizon game, but it almost could have just been a big DLC.
Really?
Right? And again, I loved it. Played the whole thing from start to finish. Gonna buy the DLC, but it's they haven't changed the loop.
Right. Yeah, I get that. You're not the first person to say that about Horizon, especially, right?
It's a fine loop, right? The Assassin's Creed games have been the same loop for ages.
Oh yeah, since the first one. I've only been able to play the first one from beginning to end. All the other ones I've attempted, dude, I have some games that I've never even Assassin's Creed games that are still in its plastic because people have bought them for me, and I'm I just don't like the series.
And they got so big and bloated.
Yes.
3 makes you work for it, but there's some real good writing and some really cool ideas in 3.
Mm-hmm.
But A, it makes you work for it, and B, it makes you work for it. Because it's the best stuff in 3 is side quests, which are never what?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What was I going to say? It was something about... Oh, yeah. Talking about Horizon, just because you can't talk Horizon without talking about Legend of Zelda. Do you think that the new Legend of Zelda game is going to have this issue of it just feeling like just a big DLC?
That's a good question. I don't love over speculating based on trailers.
Yeah.
It looks like based upon the trailer they've tried to add enough that it'll feel like a sequel.
Yeah.
It won't feel like a whole brand new thing. It won't be the same leap that Breath of the Wild was over previous ones.
Yeah.
Which is fair. There is a place and a time for sequels. Rock on.
Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask. I think it'll feel like that, right? Where they're going to try to make the game feel different enough so that you're not playing the same game over.
Yeah, and we're going to add stuff. We're going to have new ideas and concepts. We're going to have new riffing on things, which is a great way to do it.
Yep.
It's going to be interesting.
Let's talk about Sony PlayStation's The State of Play. because we might as well. No one is going to E3 this year. Nintendo officially said they're not going. State of Play was last week. Nintendo Direct a couple weeks ago. Waiting for Xbox to kind of play their cards. So a couple things that we talked about last week. PlayStation VR 2 titles. Got the Foglands, Green Hell, blah, 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 blah. Same old stuff, same old stuff. I think some of the biggest news was the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Some more information is there, new details. We got trailers, gameplay footage, more. A lot of people are getting a little upset about this. Question for you. I think the biggest news tidbit out of this was when they kind of sneakily announced the continuous network connection that you have to play this game. What does that mean?
I mean, I thought we already knew that. Personally, I thought we already knew that, like, it's like Gotham Knights. It's just Gotham Knights was a test balloon to see how far they could do this. And, culturally, I think that it's like Gotham Knight. Who's still playing Gotham Knights?
Like people who just bought it for sale.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. That's what I think, though, right? Is like I don't think that it's getting the continuous numbers they wanted.
Yeah.
And it is one of those games that it felt like, there was hype in the lead up, and now no one's talking about it. And we have a lot of games right now that I feel like that's what keeps happening. Is it's like, when's the last time we had a really good game that dominated the discourse for reasons about the game itself?
Oh,
right? Not for whether or not it's helping to fund a genocide. Not for whether or not it's helping to fund a different genocide.
All right.
Like Breath of the Wild.
God of War. Ragnarok.
That's fair. I could give you I'd give you God of War Ragnarok. I don't know. I'm not seeing it as much in like the ether around me, but I'm willing to concede that might be the scene I'm in.
Here's the thing about God of War, and this is something that we talked about when we were talking about getting PlayStation 5s, is people are just getting the system now. So I'm literally seeing on my social feeds, on the It's Canon podcast social feeds, at It's Canon Podcast, where people are finally getting their, God of War 2, Ragnarok edition PlayStation. So they're finally just playing it, right?
That's fair. But yeah, I will 100% concede that.
It doesn't have that continuous hype. That's a great question, man. Sports games don't have that anymore. Sports games die within months now because, they go on sale, and the next one's going to come out in a few months. Yeah. Oh, man. Really trying to think.
I'm thinking we had Breath of the Wild. Horizon Zero Dawn had that effect in part because for the era especially, it was so gorgeous.
Spider-Man
was probably the last really big one that because it had a while that it was just like everyone was like, you gotta get Spider-Man.
Yep.
And
Theft Auto.
That was 10 years ago.
I know, literally 10 years ago. 2012 was when I bought Grand Theft Auto for PS3.
And yeah, I would give you that. Grand Theft Auto 5 was that kind of game.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, because that's when PS4 came out. I bought it a few months before PS4 came out. Oh my God. It's crazy. Dude, that's crazy. Okay, so State of Play. Another thing they were talking about, March 24th. Console and PC, Resident Evil 4 remake. That's getting some hype for people.
Gotta get those remake monies.
Yeah. How do you feel about remakes? That's something we haven't really talked about too much.
I don't know. I have complicated feelings that if we want to get into it, I would have to talk around my thoughts. I picked up Metroid Prime remake, and I'm enjoying it. But also, I didn't play Metroid Prime the first time because I remember not having the money back in the day.
That is the classic response, though, why I think the remake market is hot. Okay, yes, it is one thing to get a game for nostalgic reasons, and you're playing this for nostalgic reasons, and it's like, it's updated. But people our age, we missed out on certain games because we just didn't have the funds. We had to buy our own systems. Our parents didn't buy us stuff, yada, yada, yada. So this is the first time, without being a retro gamer, that you've been able to play some of these games.
Yeah, I am a little bit more. Yeah, I have complicated feelings about it because the other side of it is like we do keep seeing Nintendo and Sony, especially, well, Nintendo especially, but Sony to a lesser extent, like pulling access to their own products to like help prop up this remake
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah.
I also think there's a really big difference between the ones where it's like it's a remake and you're like it is literally just you've upgraded the graphics.
Yeah.
Versus the Final Fantasy VII Insanity, where it's like, is it a remake? Is it a sequel? Who knows
It's
yet?
both. It's both.
Yeah.
That's a different one. I would consider that a remake plus, because the swerves that you had in the story, you're essentially getting a whole new experience.
Well, especially when characters are like, oh, he didn't die anymore, and it's like, wait, what?
What, right?
I beg your pardon? I think I just killed someone from the Advent Children movie who isn't supposed to be alive yet. What is happening?
Right?
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying, is like that's like the gold standard of like it's same characters, an entirely different insane new thing.
But only a JRPG can get away with something like that. Like Last of
You can do
Us.
it with some other stuff.
Grand Theft Auto? Last of Us?
Grand Theft Auto.
You can't.
Last of Us, no. Grand Theft Auto, you could, because Grand Theft Auto is fucking insane already.
Yeah, true enough.
Like, you gotta remember, Grand Theft Auto, you couldn't get away with it. I'm like, Grand Theft Auto had the unspeaking protagonist from 3 show up in San Andreas and be given a name.
Yeah, so true.
And canonically a huge dick, which is just a weird, like, addition.
Well, when in Rome. Got some Street Fighter 6 news from the PS State of Play.
Internet's horny.
Yep. It is. It really is. Cammy, Lily, Zangief. They're going to be, they've been added to the roster. Humanity, the revelation of humanity, a puzzle title where players take on the role of Shiba Inu, who's tasked with guiding humanity. This reminds me kind of like of the game, like just from its description, Stray.
Yep. Or Lemmings.
Isn't that just humanity in the Matrix?
¿Por qué no dos?
Destiny 2 still going. Destiny 2 Lightfall. Classic Bungie. They showcased more of its expansion, Lightfall, for Destiny 2. They got a trailer. We heard about the story, features, and other stuff. You know what? Say what you want. Good on Bungie.
I'm just trying to look at what the concurrent players are for Destiny 2.
There's got to be enough for them to continue, like, to keep making DLCs or whatever you call them, expansions.
It's averaging about just under 1 million active a day.
Active a day.
Yeah, 1 million uniques. Destiny's not for me. Not gonna, no shade if you like it. Those are solid. Those are numbers you just keep making the game.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And even then, what do they qualify an active user? Because I bet you there's a lot more. 1 minute of play, an hour of play, 3 hours of play. Is it 30 seconds of being on any screen, right?
Yeah, so that is have gotten past the login.
Okay.
This is also saying there are 42. This estimate from this source, which I am trying to figure out the veracity of, but is 42 million subscribers.
Woo! Wow!
What?
Wow!
What?
See, Bungie can't shit talk them.
All right. Yeah, I would just keep making it. Yeah.
Yep. That's crazy, man. I knew the numbers were impressive, all things considered, but I didn't think it was that impressive. Now, is Destiny 2 considered a game, or is that considered one of those continuous, I forget what the exact term is,
I don't know.
like a never-ending
The
game that just
the
gets
live
updates?
service or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently November 2022 was like the worst month in ages. And Steam alone was reporting 40,000 concurrents.
That's crazy.
And I think it's like, in my understanding, because it would be still on, because it's an EA game.
Yep.
So a lot of people would be going through EA's formerly
like that
Origin,
service.
now
Origin, whatever it is now.
Whatever it is now. Some are going to be on console.
Yep.
Good for them, I guess.
Yeah, good for them. You know what?
Okay.
More money to the video game industry. Baldur's Gate 3. Larian Studios, they announced August 31st for the upcoming RPG title. We got a trailer. It confirms J.K. Simmons' role as the antagonist, General Ketherick Thorm. Awesome name.
I mean, this is the thing I want to talk about in a future episode, though, because they've been selling this as early access at $80 for, I want to say, 2 years now.
Yeah.
And that's weird. It's very weird how much, even like, Larian is not a small studio. This is Wizards of the Coast. We're talking about our main thing, and just like, they can just sell an early access game, which means we're doing testing. So they can lower their testing cost and just sit on our money for 2 years.
Yep, that's exactly it.
Weird.
Yep, that's exactly it. Atomic Heart. That's been getting a lot of attention lately.
What a weird one.
Right?
What a weird one.
First person action RPG set in a world of killer robots.
Ooh, robot mommy step on me is a lot of what I've seen. Also, I've also seen a lot of, isn't this owned by the Russian government in part?
Right?
Isn't it kind of weird?
Well, the world's a weird place right now. The world's a very weird place right now. All right, we gotta do a trip to Disneyland in LA, because Captain America the musical is real and it is going to be a show there. I just want to watch that. Like that's literally all I want.
Is it only at Disneyland?
Only at Disneyland, US, LA. Yep.
Because I have access to a timeshare in Disney World.
God damn it.
And I'm like, wrong coast.
Yep. Rogers the musical, which was originally introduced in Hawkeye, is actually going to be a thing, and they're going to probably redo the music.
Of course, they're going to do that. It's going to be filmed, and it's going to be on Disney Plus at some point once they get the kinks out and they get a couple of good filmed versions of it.
Yep, like Hamilton.
Because why not?
Yep. Netflix lowering its prices in many parts of the world. Good for them. Must be nice.
Netflix, go home, you're drunk.
Right? They're trying anything for some good PR, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's a question. You've seen this whole HBO stuff, right? Where they're going to be taking a lot of their popular shows like Westworld, moving them to the free platforms like, Tubi, like whatever, Pluto TV,
Roku.
whatever, Roku, those free platforms. They're also going to be testing putting them on regular TV, edited versions, obviously, for some of their shows.
Wait,
WB Discovery.
Did HBO just reinvent cable?
Right? They're just desperate right now. It's crazy. They're like trying so many different things.
So weird. It's almost like just you had a working business model.
Yeah. That's the part that gets to me, is like, I just don't understand. I just don't understand where, like, I do understand, but I don't understand what that company is thinking right now. And then you have like the horrible news that they got this weekend, where apparently test screening for Aquaman 2 are disastrous, where it's being called the worst DC movie, period.
I mean, haven't test screening said almost every DC movie is the worst DC movie, period?
Well, buddy, they seem to be getting worse and worse at this point.
I mean, like, I don't know. I don't. Like, Aquaman's already a hard character to do anything with on the big screen.
Yep.
Right? Like, you can pretend Aquaman is like a well-known A-list hero, but who outside of comics knows who the fuck Aquaman is?
People who watched Curb Your Enthusiasm. Not Curb Your Enthusiasm. What was that stupid show called from HBO? The one where the actors, the Adrian whatever, Grenier show.
I don't know what you're trying to say to me.
Doesn't matter. No one knows about Aquaman.
They know Aquaman?
They don't. No one knows about Aquaman.
But do they know, like, do they care? Or are they like,
No.
oh, I know of Aquaman, versus, like, do they know why the lore of his half Atlantic and half human origin is important? Do they care about Black Manta?
No, they don't.
Right, like,
They don't.
yeah, it's what it kind of comes down to.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I'm gonna try to watch this movie later this week. I am watching Creed 3 later this week because many reasons.
Yeah, no.
Right? But
Yeah.
so that's I think I'm gonna do that Thursday. Maybe on Wednesday I'm gonna go watch Cocaine Bear. I just wanna watch this. I've honestly wanted to watch this since I heard about it, but it's done pretty good numbers domestically. Made about 30 million, number one in the country. This is what I really want to talk about. Ant-Man went down 69% week over week.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, part of that is gonna be how much they've trained people that it's like, you can just get them Disney Plus.
Yep, that's right? Exactly the point I was trying to make, right? Like, it's if you don't watch it that first weekend, just gotta wait a few more weeks.
Yeah, like, unless a Marvel movie comes out that has the cultural impact of, like, Black Panther 1, because that was like, people went nuts, and rightfully so. That's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, I know people who watched the first Black Panther like 5 times in the theater alone.
Yeah, but for Ant-Man Quantumania, which is fine, it's a solid movie, but I would bet a lot of people were like, oh, it's fine, I'll wait for Disney Plus.
Yep, that's exactly it. That's 100% it right there, right? The whole Disney Plus phenomena. Just reading this IGN review of, is this IGN? Of course it's IGN.
Of course it's IGN.
6. That is like the lowest score I've seen for Creed 3 so far. It's getting it got a 6.
Wait, IGN's keyboard works 6 and lower? That doesn't sound right. That sounds like some bullshit.
That to me just goes to show you this movie's probably like a perfect 10.
I mean, the number of people who are ex-IGN employees who've been like, yeah, it's just it's just who they're buying ads. Is like, well, okay, well then why would any of us trust this?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know, man. I'm just bitter. I'm just bitter about a lot of stuff when it comes to
old
reviewers.
men shaking their fists at the clouds.
Honestly, and this is why I always say, like, just there's so much content, so many awesome creators out there, so many awesome creators who don't have the opportunity to get review copies for one reason or another. We've been blessed with getting back on a few PR lists again, but you know, when I send out emails to get us on PR lists, I flat out tell them, you know, it's an unbiased review.
I mean, and I'm not trying to blow smoke, I know a couple of stories of certain places being especially good and especially bad.
Yeah.
In the stuff we've done with them, to their credit, Marvel and DC have both been very like, you're gonna say what you're gonna say.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
which
You're
I respect. I like
Yeah.
that.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, let us. You know what? Let's just jump to it. I think we're gonna start going around in circles. Unless is there anything you want to talk about before we jump to Wizards of the Coast?
Quick little thing, because it's hilarious. My partner has not seen any of the Rocky movies before,
Okay.
but saw the trailer for Creed 3 and was like, "Fuck, I gotta watch the Rocky movies."
Okay.
And I was like, "Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you
Strap
do."
in." So
Right.
on Friday before they left for their trip, we got to Rocky 4.
Nice.
And they finished it and they were like, "What the fuck was that? What was that?"
You know,
And I'm
Rocky
like-
4 is so funny again. Like, there was a period in time where it was okay, whatever, it's Russians, woo. But now it's like, we're right back to that.
But there's a robot. This is
Yeah,
a
I know.
Like, if you cut the extraneous fluff in that movie, it's 45 minutes.
If at all.
Yeah.
Apollo Creed dies, spoiler alert. Rocky gets
Yeah.
angry. Rocky has a montage. He beats Drago. Ivan Drago. That is the movie in a
Four
nutshell.
montages in that movie.
Yep.
'Cause Rocky has a driving montage, workout montage 1, workout montage 2.
So true. So true.
Yeah. So my partner was like, "That was insane. And I feel like I need to work out now." And I'm like, "That's the Rocky effect."
Wait till she gets to 5. Oh my God, with Tommy Gunn.
So bad.
It's the
5
worst.
is the worst one by so far.
By far. Because that's when they like dropped like the classic music, the classic feel, and they try to 90-fy it.
And the budget feels like it's $25.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like,
That's why you didn't see another Rocky movie for 14 years until you got Balboa, which was a fantastic film. I recently
pretty good.
watched that on TV. It's rare that I sit down and actually watch a movie on TV. One of the few movies I watch on TV, anytime it's on, True Lies. I don't know why. It's on TV all the time.
fantastic movie.
Oh, I love that. You know they're making a show out of that,
Sure. Why
Right?
not? Nothing's new.
right?
Yeah.
Right?
All of
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
OGL.
Balboa.
TTRPG.
very good. Very freaking good. Love that movie. Every time I forget how much I actually like that movie.
Don't love the weird pull yourself up by the bootstraps, like, rant at the audience, but otherwise.
Yeah. Then we jump to Creed. Oh, the first Creed was so good.
Fantastic.
So good. Loved it. Creed 2 was good, but
Yep.
Creed, the first one, so good. So I'm really looking forward to Creed 3, and just to top it all off, you know, you get Jonathan Majors.
Man's a fucking oak tree.
Yep.
The weird experience, I texted my mom, and I was like, "That's a good-looking man." Mom was like, "Mm-hmm," and I'm like, "Don't love that conversation." I walked into that, but I don't love that one.
Yep. Yep. I can feel my fever coming back, like the sweat just starting. All right, so let's
All right.
jump to
Let's get to the OGL.
Wizards of the Coast. Tyler, I'm going to act stupid. Shut up, listeners. Or I shouldn't say that, but shut up, people who are going to say, "But you are stupid." I am not. No, but I'm gonna take a step back, right? Because there's a lot to unpack on this one. So I'm gonna try my best to ask the right questions, take this in the right direction, but I'm gonna really let you take it because. You know what? Tell your background to our listeners, our newer listeners. I think that a lot of people don't realize that this literally is your ish.
Yeah, so I've been a writer and game designer in the TTRPG field for a decade now. I've worked for companies like Modifius, Chaosium, FASA, Stygian Fox. It's been a fun time. It's been good stuff. But it was also very weird and stressful earlier this year when Wizards of the Coast just declared maybe the economy doesn't exist anymore. And I had a lot of clients on Monday of that week being like, you might not have a job anymore. None of this might exist. We might all be unemployed by Friday. And I'm like, hey, that's a great thing to hear. So
the uproar that this caused in such a short amount of time is crazy. And I don't think people realize just how many companies, not people, companies were affected by the proposed changes that Hasbro / Wizards of the Coast put into place.
Yeah, I mean, as of us reporting, I was reading a report of the top 5 publishing companies for RPGs, and 4 of them sell 5e products, which means stuff that would have been affected by this licensing change. So, you know, this license would have affected Critical Role, this would have affected Dimension 20. Conceivably, this could have resulted in an alternate reality, a showdown between Amazon and Hasbro suing each other.
Right?
Like, it was weird.
Look, you can fuck with
weeds,
open licenses all you want. No, you really can't. You can fuck with stuff all you want. But as soon as you fuck with Ashley Johnson, that's where Boris draws the line.
It's weird. So before we get too much into the weeds on it, I want to do a quick bit for people who don't know TTRPGs as well. The economics of tabletop RPGs are weird. It's not unlike the comic industry in that, like, the couple of big players control the vast majority.
Yep.
It's really, and like comics, it's super hard to get good numbers.
Yes. And harder and harder and harder.
Yeah, because they're doing everything they can to obfuscate it. So Roll20, which is an online place you can play RPGs with your friends, their numbers get reported regularly, and they said 52% of their players are playing 5e. That's a big number. Mike Murals, I don't know how to pronounce his name. One of the designers of 5e said in the first year it was published that 5e had outsold every single previous version except for one.
Yeah.
Already in his first year. And we're just looking at a box. I don't know if that's cigars or RPG stuff.
I'll just take a look at who makes that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My nephews bought me that.
Nice.
It's the story engine. The deck of endless storytelling prompts designed by blah, 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 blah. I like this. I got to open this up and got to start using it.
It's fun. It's a fun little deck, yeah. So, the economics are weird. Depending on who you ask, somewhere between 50 and 80% of the industry is Wizards of the Coast.
Yep.
Which is like a huge swath. Wizards of the Coast has had a thing called the SRD, which is, if I say SRD later, that's what I'm talking about. It is their license, it's an OGL. It is very much inspired by and based upon the open licenses you find for software companies.
Yep.
The various Creative Commons license, it's based on that. And the original one for 5th edition was roughly saying certain parts of a game cannot be copyrighted and cannot be trademarked. That's how copyright and trademark law works. Certain things can. Somewhere between, like, and then this document definitely has some stuff that are covered by copyright law and some stuff that isn't. We're putting out this document so no one fights about what is and isn't.
Yeah.
So they do some stuff, like any sort of named character, that's copyrightable. If you want to talk about Forgotten Realms, it's a D&D setting, that's copyrightable. If you want to talk about the idea of a fighter, not copyrightable. All of a sudden, January 2023, Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro.
Before we step into the actual issue, so Wizards of the Coast is a subsidiary of Hasbro, correct?
Yes.
Now,
Wizards of the Coast has traded hands a few times, but has been under Hasbro for a while now.
Yep. Not too long ago, Hasbro made many, many changes to Magic the Gathering, which essentially destroyed Magic the Gathering in that community?
Debatable.
Very
Their
debatable.
sales numbers are still fantastic.
Oh, they're fantastic, but it caused uproar, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, yeah,
The point I'm trying to make is that people were almost just waiting for something to happen with Wizards of the Coast at this point.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I'm not saying I support... I'm not saying I side with them. I'm saying, to put on my business hat, I can understand being a business person and seeing Critical Role raise, $7 million on Kickstarter and have an Amazon TV show and be like, isn't that our thing?
Yeah.
Are they just using our thing?
Mm-hmm.
And,
Now, wouldn't Wizards of the Coast have a special deal with someone like them?
we're going to get
Critical
into that.
Role.
We're going to get into that.
Yep.
And one of the things to talk about is, to get a little business hatty, Games Workshop, who makes Warhammer, already did this.
Yeah.
And they did it, when I say the good way, I mean good if you're a business sociopath. I mean good is ineffective. Because what they did is Games Workshop made sure to splinter the community first, so they wouldn't all work together, and that allowed them to come in and, break up a bunch of the third-party stuff and allow them to do whatever they wanted.
So they were essentially doing side deals with major players, major groups, the Critical Roles of the world for Magic, for Warhammer, right? And that essentially is like, so as the hammer came down, I did it. People were kind of left on their own. It was just the actual one-offs. It was you and your group of friends who were left alone fighting all these rules because there were all these side deals already made with the big players.
Yes. Critical Role does have a deal with Wizards. What that entails and what that covers is not known.
Yeah.
It is NDA'd up the wazoo. It is worth noting.
Wizard Zoo. I don't know. I'll just keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. It is worth noting. Critical Role has... I don't know who makes their business decisions, but they have engaged in what is called sharp practice, which means you're kind of mean. You're not breaking any laws, but you're kind of being sketchy.
Yeah.
So Critical Role, that's a separate discussion. But Critical Role had a deal with them.
And the reason why I bring up Critical Role, just because of the huge influence, they have the Amazon show. Everyone knows of this group.
One
right?
of the biggest things on Twitch.
Yep.
They make bank, and good for them. Penny Arcade used to have a deal with Wizards, and their statement on this fiasco was strange and made it sound like they don't anymore.
Right.
And, Acquisitions Incorporated, which is Penny Arcade's thing, also makes decent money. And I think Dimension 20, which is part of Dropout, and a couple of the other big ones don't have deals.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about this. Early January happens, or before this, D&D executives, Kyle Brink, he's just sitting in his office, he's looking at people just making bank on their product, and he's like, wait a minute, we got to capitalize on this. Why aren't we making bank also? So they make changes to their OGL, essentially their open license, similar to, like you mentioned, software, and this was in early January, and what happened on the faithful Monday.
They never released the new document.
You're right.
It leaked.
Leaked or leaked?
Yeah, well, yes. I was one of the first people to be like, look, whether or not this was intentional, this is a great opportunity for them to have a test balloon now, right? Because when it first leaked, and it was rough. It was along the lines of, if you make more than $700,000 a year, you just have to pay royalties.
Yep.
And you have to report every sale and a bunch of other, rules, which it's debatable whether an OGL can be revoked.
Right.
So there was a lot of weird stuff and a lot of people panicking. And, I was the first to be like, look, this is possibly a leak. This could just be from the lawyers. Be prepared.
If the odds of this not being a test balloon are as slim as, a lot of people's hairlines.
Especially now, 100%. At the time, and this is me lawyer hatting a little bit and trying to talk about lawyers, this looked very lawyerly. So I'm not saying no. I'm saying you're probably right in balance of probability. But I'm saying, 25% chance it was a leak, maybe 30. In part because the Wizards staff is already pretty fist railing at the man.
Yeah, for sure.
So it leaked, and a bunch of people were up in arms because countless businesses would just go under. They just couldn't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And there was then Wizards backtracking and a bunch of PR stuff, and then some what if we change these clauses? What if we change these clauses back and forth? And I was in a few meetings with people about this and various what we would do to prep. And I'm the first to admit I thought more people would break ranks and try to cut a deal with Wizards. And it seems like no one did.
I was very shocked about that. It seemed like the community really held together. And I think what screwed Wizards is the fact that they didn't cut these deals before this document came out.
I think that's part of it, yeah. Well, it was that, and Critical Role saw which way the wind was blowing, and they even were like, we can't say anything because of our agreements, but just know we're also concerned about the future of D&D, which is, some people would say is talking out of both sides of your mouth. Some people is being like, look, they're, they have mortgages to pay. And some people are like, well, you make a lot more money than me. So I get a lot of the feelings about that. And that's super valid to be, it's similar to when I get mad at Taylor Swift for you could have done more about Ticketmaster, Taylor Swift. You are the richest musician.
You literally could do whatever you wanted, but you chose not to. Here's the thing. So, Kyle Brick, the main executive producer of D&D, he as this quote unquote document is out in the public domain, it is almost as if they were negotiating out in public with the community. I personally have never seen something like this, but they were adamant that this new OGL would not change things like the video content, virtual tabletop programs like Roll20, Foundry, content produced under the previous version of the OGL, such as old modules and things like that. So, what was the outcry about then?
Well, we get into one of the legal questions, which is issue one is they said that, but the clauses of the leaked agreement didn't agree with what they were saying. Two was a few of the drafts that came out included the clause that Wizards could change this at any time.
Yeah.
Which, I've talked to lawyer friends and some were like, if one party can change a contract at any time for any reason and make it retroactive, that's not really a contract. And they said if they ever had to argue it, they would argue this isn't valid because it's not meaningful. But they also pointed out that if you are, any other RPG company on the planet, Wizards can just bury you in paperwork and lawyers' fees.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They can just throw their weight around, and even if you could win the legal case, if you go bankrupt first, that doesn't matter.
Yep.
So another one of the big questions was, can you revoke an open license? And we don't know. I fell down a rabbit hole of research, and I found out that as much as a lot of the economy actually relies upon Creative Commons and open licenses, courts don't love them.
No.
There aren't a lot of decisions the courts have said either way whether they're valid.
Courts are so afraid to put give precedence to open licenses, rightfully so, because precedence is the basis of making decisions for the future. So they really stray from making decisions because, well, you don't know who's going to be giving you money in the future.
Well, that too. Like let's steel man the courts for a second, and let's assume the courts were perfectly moral. They're not. But if they were perfectly moral, they still like have a reason to be hesitant.
Yep.
Because some of those clauses are a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the clauses in several of the Creative Commons licenses is basically this populates forwards. So it's you can use something for a commercial license, or so you can use something for a commercial purpose, but it also has to be under a Creative Commons license, which means you can sell it, but people can just take it.
Yep.
Which, like, when does that stop? Does that just go forever?
Well, that's the thing, right? When it's in the public domain, at what point is it legally not in the public domain anymore?
Well, and strictly speaking, Creative Commons is not the public domain. Legally, those are different things.
Yes, exactly.
One of the things that Creative Commons, I think most, I don't think any of them sign it away, but I know most definitely don't sign away what are called moral rights. Where moral rights are your right to have, amongst other things, your name on a thing you wrote. So if I wrote a poem and I put it in Creative Commons and I put it under, what is it, CC4, Creative Commons License 4.0, and Boris did a dramatic reading, he would still have to say written by Tyler. Yep. I don't get any money, but he has to say it. Where this starts to get weird is certain jurisdictions have other rights that are moral rights. In Canada, we protect, to a degree, the form of expression.
Yeah.
So we have said you cannot change the meaning of a piece of art without violating the creator's moral rights. And funny enough, the case on that is about those geese in the Eaton Center.
Yep.
Where that's a sculpture, an artist made it. One year, the Eaton Center management or whoever put Santa hats on it, and he sued. And he was like, that changes the meaning, which it does. Like, it's now, like, you can say it's dumb that like, it doesn't change the meaning in a way that you think is important, but he thinks it is important.
It's the
and
artist.
He sued and won.
Exactly.
But that's where this starts to get complicated, is America has not historically respected that level of moral rights.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this problem. We have all these nesting problems of just all these legal questions that it really seems like if they wanted to go as aggressive as possible, the Hasbro plan was, we're the biggest kid in the schoolyard. As long as they don't all gang up, we've got this.
Yep.
And then they all ganged up.
They all ganged up. And then some. And then some. It
was impressive.
I have never seen a community come together this way. Because one thing we always talk about on this show is the way that a lot of these fandoms and these communities are so fractured, right? And they are.
Well, yeah, 100%.
Right? Because these are all businesses. We say community like they're all, jumping in harmony. No, these are all different businesses trying to make money and literally competing against each other using the open gaming license, right? So they're just sharing this one document, all trying to make their own money, all trying to make more money than the other person. So the fact that they all put all their quote unquote differences aside and said, wait a minute. Hold on. Yeah. What the hell?
Well, and not even just them. Companies that didn't rely on it got on side.
Well,
fans
because
got
a lot
on
of these
side.
companies, some of these companies have their own, for lack of a better term, open gaming license that they're afraid that could change because, again, precedents will be set.
Yep. Yeah. And the other side is, like, I didn't expect the fan base to react the way they did.
Oh, man.
Wizards of the Coast saw a huge cut to their D&D Beyond subscribers that I don't think we've gotten an updated number of how much it dropped, but they were playing damage control in the last shareholders call.
Yep, they were. D&D Beyond. Can you explain what that is?
D&D Beyond is an online resource that allows you to build characters. It allows you to access stuff that's in the books in a more convenient digitized form. I believe D&D Beyond. Oh, I'm having a moment. I think they were first a separate company that then Wizards bought.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. So it's a really useful tool. You don't need it, but it makes life easier. And you pay a monthly subscription to get access. And really cleverly, from their point of view, you pay a monthly subscription, and you have to buy the digital copies of the books you already bought the print copies of. Woo!
Yeah, but yeah,
But it makes the money.
Exactly, it makes the money. Saves
The other
creators
side-
time. Saves, especially content creators,
Yeah.
a bunch of time. They're not using paper. They're not scrolling through books as they're trying to figure stuff out live on Twitch or whatever.
Exactly. The other side is the number of competitors, whether it's your Chaosium, who does Call of Cthulhu, whether it's your Paizo, which does Pathfinder 1 and 2 and Starfinder. Like, they were selling out. Like, they sold out entire print runs over the course of a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Chris Birch, who's the I can't remember what his job title is. He's in charge of Modifius, who, in the interest of disclosure, I am writing stuff for Modifius right now. He doesn't have any say of whether I can do interviews. Like, I'm
Right.
just a freelancer, but like, in case you're worried, this colors my opinion. They've paid me in the past, and they're gonna pay me again in the future. But he was like, we didn't sell out, but he was like, we saw real good sales because they have the Dune RPG and they have Fallout as an RPG. So like, that's some good stuff to have.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So, we've thrown a lot of information out there. So we have the open gaming license. Let's just call it this document of rules and regulations of how you're allowed to use, the D&D official stuff
Yeah.
for your
A subset of it.
world, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So what Wizards of the Coast did is they came in and said, okay, we want a piece of the pie. So they set out a number, $700,000. If you make more than $700,000, you have to give them X amount of the pie. And there was a lot of more paperwork and stuff like that you would have to show and prove. And you would essentially have to show them how much you're making to prove that you're not making more than that. Was there any other significant changes in terms of video content, in terms of anything else like that?
There was a couple of clauses that were thrown around in a few different drafts dealing with some other stuff. They had a couple about like video games and digital assets, which they said meant NFTs. What's a digital asset is a real good question. They had some really stringent reporting requirements, which even if you didn't have to give Wizards a cut, the time and effort taken to create those reports and ensure they're compliant, that takes time and money. So you could almost imagine, what if you had to do taxes a second time?
Yeah.
And you just didn't get anything for it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's essentially what they were asking for, is proof of
Like
earnings.
all of your sales.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest well, there's a small thing, which is they had a morality clause in there, which was like, you couldn't be racist or sexist or homophobic or anything, which I'm like, okay, like, that's fair, but I don't know if you can enforce, like, what is that? Under the law, under contract law, those terms are not well defined.
Yeah.
In human rights law, they are, but different bodies of law don't always share definitions for things. So it was a weird clause, and I suspect in part it was something for them to point at and go, look, we're doing a good.
Yep. Oh, that's exactly what it was. So there was uproar. There was almost, like I mentioned earlier, live negotiations that was happening on social media.
So weird.
Right? And Yeah, it was
Never
crazy.
seen anything like it.
And then, yeah, like the essentially everything's been put on hold, so to speak.
No, they
so-
caved. Oh,
To a certain extent. They caved at the time, but changes are coming. What those changes are, we don't know.
what they're trying to do, it seems like, is there's an upcoming update to Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
It might be 5.5. They're calling it D&D 1 or something, or 1 D&D. It's a stupid name. It's a stupid name, so I can't remember it. The current belief is they're going to try to put this new content under a new license. Which, yeah, that's a smarter call to put on our business hat.
So
They're going to change core things.
If
they
you're
already
gonna
have
use
certain classes.
the new
refusing to
stuff,
and yeah,
you're bound to this new agreement.
that's what they're going to try to do. And one of the clauses they floated is if you use this new stuff even once, you are bound by this new agreement and you cannot go back to the old one, even if future stuff doesn't use the new things.
So basically,
Which, again, I have talked to lawyers, and a few lawyers are like, I don't know if you can do that.
you can't. No, yeah, you. It doesn't. Yeah, it just. No, it just sounds very strange. It's like, hold on.
It is
Here's
a
this new
license
agreement.
clause.
You know,
Yeah.
you used it once, you're bound by it. No grandfathering, no nothing, or no updating after the fact.
Yeah, the idea is roughly that it has a clause that like supersedes all previous agreements, which like that happens sometimes. You know, if you have a show at Netflix that you're like, oh my god, brain fart. If you're Joe Hill, who's selling Lock and Key to Netflix, and Netflix comes in, and now because Lock and Key's done now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's say Netflix is like, we want to do like a sequel show, and Joe Hill decides he's on board. Part of that negotiation, part of that contract would probably be this replaces the old contracts.
Right.
But that's a different thing because you're both negotiating from something resembling equal footings.
Yeah. It's interesting. All of this is interesting just because, you know, like we mentioned earlier, public domain and open, very different stuff. You know, the whole setting the precedents, not really there. And it seems like they're literally, almost, well, you know, literally, however you want to use that term, jumping through hoops, trying to change things back and forth, right? So just from a legal standpoint, like what's going to happen? Like, you know, using your business sense, using your legal hat, using your, you know, your knowledge from the industry, what do you foresee coming down the road?
So I'm going to say the same thing I've said in 2 meetings now. Once upon a like I know what I would do if I were in Wizards of the Coast and I was a sociopath. I know exactly what I would do. Once upon a time, I would assume that's what they're going to do. But the last 3 years have been so goddamn weird, and this leak, and part of the reason I think it was a leak is just it was such a bad agreement that like how could you expect anything else to happen? And why would you give the community extra time to mobilize?
Right.
Like part of my thing is like it's so stupid to like put up something that bad as a test balloon. So like I don't know, people are just dumb. Like the shareholders are now yelling at Wizards, being like, and Hazard being like, what are you doing? Stop it! You have a movie coming out.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point, right? Like, all of this is happening on a year that Dungeons and Dragons is getting newfound attention from the mainstream pop culture, because they have a movie.
Also, like every year for I think the last 6 have been their best year ever.
Yeah.
Every year is getting better. I think it was 2020. They had like a 33% increase in sales.
Thank you, Stranger Things.
Like Stranger Things. I mean, Penny Arcade, Vin Diesel,
Yeah.
Critical Role, Dimension 20. Because like a lot of these people started doing it a while ago.
Yeah.
It's bananas.
It is. right? So,
The,
here's the thing. Me from a business sense, I understand where Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast are coming from. I really do.
Oh yeah.
The execution was the most piss poor thing humanly possible.
So what I would do, again, assuming I'm a business sociopath, is I would say everyone won. I do exactly what they've done so far. Of like, say everyone's won. Don't say a goddamn thing about it again. Oh, the movie's coming. Oh, we got new books, and you focus on that for a while. Internally, I would set up a team of lawyers to basically be like, I want to know what we can win, what we can slam dunk win, what we can win if we fight, and what we can't win if we actually go in front of a judge.
Yeah.
Right? I would categorize everything we have into one of those 4 categories within the subcategory of what is the stuff we have that we technically other people own still. Because there's a bunch of stuff they have that like Ed Greenwood owns or like other random writers still own. I'd break all that down. I would wait a while. I'd be like, you know what? We've gotten a lot of good feedback from the tests for D&D 1. It's gonna take more work than we thought. We're gonna delay it, but that's fine. We got some awesome new books coming out. I'd put out a couple more books, like, because whatever they can just republish old adventures still, and just keep putting out content.
Don't they republish?
At that point, I would get that lawyer team together. I would release Dungeons and Dragons 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd revamp the entire thing top to bottom. And with Dungeons and Dragons 6, I would release 3 licenses. And I'd be like, because they already have multiple licenses actually, because they also have a thing called the DM's Guild, which allows you to use a bunch of their IP and their artwork. But it has to be through a single closed store, and they get a cut. I would release 6 with 3 licenses. As a thing to the fans, I'd release a bare bones OGL, and I'd put nothing in it. Like I would put only the stuff that you would that the opposing side would slam dunk win against you.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'd put like fighter. It's someone who baps stuff. I would then have like a middle of the road license that gives you a lot of the cool things, but not all of it. But you just gotta talk to us a little bit. You have some clauses.
Yep.
But you make it really straightforward, and you have a couple of people whose job is to basically just like liaise with creators who want to use that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a more stringent one that gives you a lot of advantages and is basically a partnership agreement. And you use that for your critical roles, for your Dimension 20s. You reach out to Critical Role, Dimension 20, anyone else you think can make really good in advance. You get them signed up with Sweetheart deals.
Yeah.
And then you have this new one for any other Twitch streamer that basically it's like you just, as soon as anyone starts to get a little bit of traction, you kind of move them through. Because one of the big things that I think they overplayed is there's a bunch of tiny publishers out there that they should just leave alone. It makes their own game better because it's the network effect of the fact that there are tens of thousands of just free and cheap adventures and maps out there. It just helps them.
Yeah.
It just helps them sell their main book.
So one very important piece that I forgot to add earlier in all this is, part of their mentality and their thinking through this, and they being Wizards of the Coast, is not only they want a slice of the pie. Sure. There's that IP protection, right? Which is becoming much bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. You don't want a company, and I'm not saying that this is what's happening, and this is the PR spin on why these changes would be justified. They don't want a company to, turn everyone into Nazis or something like that, right? Things like that.
Sure. I mean, they kind of already have that protection in a de facto way.
Yeah.
It's not a legal protection. But the reality is like most RPG sales that aren't Wizards of the Coast, that aren't the big folks, goes through drive-through RPG.
Yeah.
And drive-through RPGs and all that stuff.
Exactly.
If you're selling like openly Nazi stuff, I mean, once upon a time I would have said most distributors aren't going to take that, but then the last couple weeks happened, so I don't know. Nothing matters. I just don't know.
No,
But,
it's true.
like, there's a few guardrails already in place that are like, they're de facto. They're not de jure, which means they're not legal protections. They're just kind of like protections that already exist of like, yeah, most stores don't want to stock the Nazi RPG.
Yep. Oh, but here's Hogwarts Legacy.
I didn't say that.
Okay, so going back to the topic, sorry. It's just I don't
Go
know.
watch Stephanie Sterling's video for my thoughts on it.
So going back to this whole fiasco, so I love your tiered approach. Actually, your tiered approach is the most common sense way to do this, because why are you going to like borderline penalize, and by penalize I mean make people go bankrupt if they're not really doing much, right? Like having a tiered approach makes the most sense.
Well, and I think a big part of it is I think they didn't care about the people who are like the small companies.
Put everyone in the same bracket, so to speak, right?
What? And I don't even think that. I think they just didn't even think about it. I think they saw Critical Role, they saw the big companies,
ones.
right? And they were like, "Fuck them. That's my money. That's the money I want in my pockets."
I want the Amazon deal.
Right? Like, they did not even consider anyone smaller than, like, definitely smaller than, like, Green Ronin.
Yeah.
But I would bet they didn't even care about Green Ronin.
Right.
Who's like a... Yeah.
The reason why this is so huge, especially in the gaming tabletop world, is because this sort of license, this sort of agreement is more than just for Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yeah. I mean, what? So
let's talk about that before we wrap things up. Let's talk about the bigger world stuff.
So, I mean, that's a great way to look at it. One of the big questions is what else is technically an OGL? So, for example, how many pieces of software do you use at work, Boris, that are probably in part under some sort of open license?
Oh, a shit ton. Actually, it's funny that you even say that, because a critical piece of my company's software is actually open software created by this open group who openly distributes this software, and we literally just take that in. So, yes.
Oh, yeah. I know, and this is not me critiquing software companies, because software and video games do this all the time. What if all of a sudden
go to the about screen of your any electronic device? You'll see that there's a whole slew, the pages and pages worth of open licenses and credits too.
Well, the number of APIs and applets and other little bits, because it's like, why would you reprogram it? And some of those, it's like, oh, you give the person 99 cents or you give them $100 or whatever for the open license, and you can use it infinitely. And some are just free. But could you imagine if all of a sudden that group was like, oh yeah, no, you can't use that anymore. We've decided you can't.
Yep.
Like,
actually, perfect example of this is what Java did when Oracle bought Java, right? This was similar to that, where when Oracle bought Java, they're like, cha-ching, motherfuckers.
Yep. Exactly. And there's a couple of big legal questions that are being tossed around with that.
Yep.
Because Oracle with Java is like, that is one of the best comparators.
Yep.
And then one of the things that's tied to is Disney has been pushing a new legal theory with some of their agreements. So when someone buys a company, you usually have to buy the company, right?
Yep.
And sometimes you can buy only parts of the company. So, for example, a common thing with distressed companies is you buy the important assets, you leave behind the assets you don't care about, and you let that remaining company declare bankruptcy.
Yep.
And then parts of those deals, you have other ways to do it. Disney has argued that when it bought certain companies, like Marvel, and it bought that IP, it didn't buy the writers' contracts.
Exactly.
So, a bunch of these writers are still owed royalties. And some are owed royalties from, like, the Star Wars books and stuff.
Yep. We've talked about this in detail.
Exactly. But could you imagine if all of a sudden the company was able to go, oh yeah, we didn't buy the OGL. We only, like, it's just, no, you just have to pay all this stuff now.
Yep.
We didn't buy that license. We left that license behind. Like, that changes how some fundamental concepts of law work in how art and video games and everything are created. And you would see a lot more things disappearing.
But Tyler, this is something that you and I have talked about on and off the air. And that's the whole concept of, you know, of how slow and ass backwards the law is to technology, to new things, right? And I think tech is really the big one where the law is just still trying to catch up to certain technologies, and it's being left in the dust to the point where we are leaving so many open questions right now that it's almost scary that one buyout, one takeover, one hostile takeover, let me be exact, is going to change, and it's going to fuck the entire tech industry big time.
I would actually argue I would argue that in the time we would do this podcast, we saw a change from a passive disinterest from legislators of keeping up with technology to an active disinterest.
Yeah. You know, ignorance is bliss to I don't give a shit.
To actively, like, why would I regulate you? You're the one paying me off.
Yeah.
And part of that is I think about the difference between Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook being in front of Congress in 2012 versus anyone getting pulled in front now.
Yeah.
And half of the shit anyone says about Twitter.
Yeah.
Of, like, whether or not you think Elon Musk should get to buy Twitter, whether or not you think Elon Musk is a good person, the ideas behind whether or not Twitter is a public forum are actively being ignored by legislators.
Yep.
And to an extent, I actually sympathize with the lawyers and judges being like, we're not supposed to be leading on this. You are. Mm-hmm. You're the one supposed to take the lead. Otherwise, we're just making stuff up.
Yeah. But isn't that at some point, isn't that where the law starts? By just taking a stab at it?
But yes. But legislators are supposed to do that, not a judge.
Not a judge. That's the issue right there, right? It's that the judges are there to enforce the laws, not create the laws.
And interpret. Because sometimes their job is to look at a law.
Yes.
And be like, well, they were talking about situation A. This is situation B. It is different. Is it different enough, or is it similar enough that it will fall under this law?
Yep. Man, it's scary. It's scary when you actually sit down and think about this, right? Like just this conversation has me thinking about so many possibilities and how something so minor, it's not minor, but something so minor, like an open game license, can trigger so many discussions, can make you think about, an entire industry's worth of work
if not
that is
multiple
left
industries.
not even unsafe, but there is literally nothing there to protect, to enforce, to anything.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's part of why, right? Because for a very long time, I think everyone, like by me, which I mean governments around the world, other countries, assumed America would take the lead, and America just didn't. And I think that's part of why we have this mess of like, well, what do you do if a social media causes a genocide? What do you do if you know a a company can decide your army doesn't have the capacity to operate anymore?
Yeah. Well,
Which is me, yeah. That's
no,
me thinking about John Deere's ability to turn off tractors.
right. But but this brings up another thing, right? And that's law here in Canada is different than law in the States. And as we know, and as we're seeing, as we talked about the whole Activision discussion, you got law in the UK and the EU, which is different from the US. So whose law supersedes whom? Right?
Yep.
So as the world becomes this global village, as that they coined in the 70s, 80s, or whenever it was, man, this stuff is becoming crazier to think about, just because it's like it's all information sharing within seconds, as opposed to however long it was before. So these interpretations, these open licenses, is becoming a bigger, not even an issue. It's just like can I say it's Pandora's box?
I think so. I genuinely think of like we keep talking about these issues, but could you imagine if Twitter decided you don't get a phone anymore because they decide that one OGL that your software relies upon doesn't count because they bought a company. And I'm using Twitter just because it sprung to mind of it's a company that like just can buy stuff. We just imagine we bought a company. It was like, no. Or even worse, like we decided Android phones don't get Twitter
That's
anymore.
A perfect example.
We cut a sweetheart deal with iPhone.
If a company openly buys Android, the kernel that all Android is based off of, and say, no, not anymore, then what?
Yeah. Right? Exactly. Or and you can get weirder of as we're starting to see where more and more companies are trying to push for stuff of like, you can't repair your own things. That's actually illegal.
Well,
right?
Like, the McDonald's, right? What do they call that? Their ice cream machine problem, right?
Yep. I mean, that's what it was early in the Ukraine war. People were talking about like, isn't it awesome that John Deere was able to shut down those tractors that Russians stole? And it's like, no, because that means all of a sudden you have to pay a subscription for your tractor.
That's actually we're gonna have a whole episode dedicated on that.
Well, I think that's part of it, right? This is us pulling up part of the tangled mess and being like, look at this part of the tangled mess. This is a real messed up part. I know it's attached to all these other parts that we need to talk about.
Dude, but it's just crazy, right? Like, it's tech and society and tech, as integrated as they are. No one has, and I'm not a fan of anyone governing certain things, but in a world where legislation is rules, in a world where people love to sue, in a world where people need to take ownership of stuff, man, I can't believe we've left so many doors unlocked, big red sign saying, come here and screw the entire world.
Yeah. Well, look, a lot of people read William Gibson and were like, sounds great. And William Gibson was like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, it isn't. And they were like, nope, sounds great.
Right.
William Gibson was like, no, this is bad. And they're like, already cutting my fingers open to put magnets in.
Yeah, man. Oh, dude, this is crazy. But this has been an excellent talk. But this is what I love about our podcast, right? We take something like Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons, and we extrapolate that into tech and society because people don't realize just how integrated all these concepts are. And as we talked about earlier, setting precedents is one thing, and then the interpretation of everything, of laws and everything else is it all comes together, and it's a much bigger picture. And like I mentioned earlier, there's so many open doors when you talk about tech and society that there's so much to talk about. And I'm not trying to scare anyone, but as you are, but as the Elon Musks of the world want to take over certain things, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more issues.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, there you go. Whew, what a chat, what a conversation. That was honestly great. All right, so you can find the It's Canon podcast on any of the podcasting apps. You can find us on Amazon, Spotify, Apple, you name it, we're probably there. You can go to itscanonpodcast.com. If you're listening to us from Sunday Night's Main Event Patreon feed, thank you so much. And just remember, your fees are due soon. It is the first on Thursday. Patreon.com/SNME Radio. That's where you can continue being part of the family. If you're listening to us from the It's Canon podcast feed, well, and you like more pop culture, you like entertainment, you like music, you like wrestling, go to Sunday Night's Main Event. Give them a shot. There's literally a show for whatever you like. Thank you so much for listening. Tyler, this was honestly an awesome time. Hopefully, Phil, you're feeling good. If you've listened to us once, thank you. If you listened to us a million times, we thank you just as much. He's Tyler. I'm Boris. Until next time, take care.